So today's talk is called How to Stop Hating Yourself um, and Find Unconditional Love. Well, that's not a big title, a grandiose title. Dong, 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 How to Stop Hating Yourself. But there we go. So when I do these talks, um, I do them spontaneously. So even though this body has been through immense training, different spiritual training, when I actually teach, there's a teaching spontaneously, even though it's going to be similar to the words of my teachers. That's the beauty of oneness. Either way you go, if you go to this moment or if you go to the timeline, everything reflects non-division. So I do these talks, I kind of like, you could say I feel into the body, but then it's like going below the body of something. I put the attention in the heart, and then the sort of heart and everything disappears. And then I let that place speak. Like I put the attention there, and then I'll wait for words to come from that place. It's not really me doing it. It sounds like me doing it, but it's more just a movement that happens. But then, so you could call that's an impersonal speaking. It's not Lisa speaking. Like it's coming from that which is behind or below the character. But then the character speaks in the apparent pattern of all the teachers that have come before. So there's teachers that I listened to and went to, and yeah, were a profound part of my journey. And when you hear me speak, there'll be similarity. There's going to be a uniqueness, but there'll be a similarity to those teachers. And that also reflects oneness, because whose message is this? If we look in the apparent timeline, so if we go to Roger, my main teacher, or Ramesh, his teacher, which is also my teacher as well, and then we go to Nisargadatta, and then we go to Nisargadatta's teacher that I forget, and then Nisargadatta's teacher, and then that's teacher, and teacher, and teacher, and teacher, and teacher. And so these words get passed on, and yeah, they evolve and change and expand. But whose words are they? Who came up with the original word, the original thought, which is so beautiful? So in either way that we speak, whether we speak spontaneously from this moment, from not a person, from flow or intuition, whatever we call it, or God, that reflects non-division. And then also if we go into the timeline and we look at where this message began, that also reflects non-division. It goes all the way back to the Big Bang. What love and beauty. So anyway, I say that because there's to be a waiting for the words to come about this subject. So the attention moves to that place, and then there is a waiting for words to come from that place. Might as well get comfortable while we wait. You can kind of see how all religions meet, you know, like while we wait for God's word. So when the human baby is born into a family with particular karma. So if it's born into a Western family, like if we say a British family, there's a particular way in which it will be raised, which will be different from family to family, but there will be a similarity also. So if we look at the bog standard, they will be born into a family where both parents work and the child is maybe part-time child-minded and then put into the government education system. And the bog standard mentality will be to utilize all of the child's time. So so the child is always in a form of activity. And there won't be rest time. Rest time will be being on the computer, watching TV, listening to something, which isn't really rest time, that's still activity. So the child will be born into a family where the whole way of operating is to constantly be in activity. So they'll look to their parents and see their parents always in activity, and when their parents are resting, they're browsing through the phone or watching TV. So this child will be born into a family where mental activity, or maybe physical activity, but mostly mental activity, is held up as God, is held up as the supreme way of being. When the child is about 2 or 3, this thought, which is being encouraged in all areas of their life, will begin to form in a way that starts believing that it is also a thought. So it will start believing, I am a body, which is a thought. I am a name, which is a thought. I am an action, which is a thought. So it will begin to override its experience of beingness, its experience of nothingness with a thought story. And then it will join a society which is only interested in activating the thought stories because everybody is doing that. So that is seen as king and queen. In the past, there were religions, and some people are still religious, and the religions gave some sort of quietness, even if there was Christianity. The Christianity is, in the name of Christianity, there's been incredible violence enacted. But what also happened was there was a going to church and there was a reverence to something higher and there was praying. So there was some form of stillness that also existed. It would also depend on the vicar or the priest, but there was something else in the consideration rather than just me and achieving and doing and thinking, like the current modern society. And I'm not saying that Christianity is like now all good or something. I can see the problems of Christianity and the restrictions of it. But one thing it did do was it encouraged families to help out with children and to have big families, bigger families, so families helped out each other. And it encouraged a certain form of ethics, and it also encouraged a certain form of stillness, of stopping, doing, thinking, like there was a day of rest. But there's all types of problems with that. I'm not trying to glorify Christianity. Whereas now, it's just everything is kind of thought, and there's kind of these nuclear families where it's not, there's not so much of families helping each other out with childcare. It's more you're putting your children into the government education system. And the government education system encourages intense focus for half an hour on 45 minutes, and then over excited play. So this is the like hyper focus and then overexcited play. So you do 40 minutes of intense work and then hyperactive play, where it's just, you know, after sitting and focusing, the kids go out and they're like screaming and really overexcited. Very rarely does the government school encourage sitting quietly where you're not focusing on work, but just sitting in some form of meditation, some form of reference to something bigger than materialism. It generally just encourages thought to doing work, and then when you're not doing work, kind of going crazy. Like if you listen to a school ground, how people think that kids in the school ground are happy when they're screaming like that is the reflection of how misunderstood what peace of mind and happiness is. Most people believe that happiness is excitement. Yeah, it's really interesting because sometimes when I'm really blissed out in a video, people think I'm sad. And sometimes when I've drunk too much coffee or I'm not very well or something and I'm like hyperactive, people think I'm happy. And I'm not saying I'm not happy when I'm hyperactive, but I just realize people's misperception of what we're going for. Excitement really isn't happiness, and excitement is often agitated and not got peace in it. Yeah, another time when I get too excited in videos is when I've been alone too long by myself. kind of been hermiting myself, and then I do a video and I'm like, "Ah." But that, like, it's a misinterpretation. The happiness is beyond that. Yeah. So the kids, this is what the kids are born into. This is what you were born into that's listening. And it's getting worse. More we're going to thought in families. You know, there's computer activity. So that's what you were born into. You were born into a family of doing, and the doing was predominantly thought-based. And then when you weren't doing, overexcitement, and there was very little just truly relaxing, being taught how to truly relax by not watching TV. Like, that's what most people think relaxation is, oh, I'll just watch a film. The brain is like hyper working in watching a film. The eyes, the colors, the noise. So, and what the kids are taught, what you are taught, is that happiness is found in things that you get, things you understand, things you get, things you do. Happiness is excitement at getting those things. Happiness is the anticipation of getting those things. Happiness is like sort of burning yourself out, you know, doing too many things. Like, a happy person is someone that's done lots of things. When you have lots of news, happiness is talking. You know, how many friendships do you have where you just sit in silence? Unhappiness is silent. That's like the worst thing you can ever have in a relationship. So no wonder people, particularly in the West, are suffering, because they've been taught that happiness is all stories and in activity and in getting. And they've encouraged this thought activity. And as they've encouraged this thought activity, they, they've encouraged thinking about themselves. So you are found in thoughts. The more you think, the more you'll think about yourself. It's just the way it's going to be. And these thoughts are going to be unconscious. They're going to be happening in the background. They're going to be happening in your sleep. So it will become a physical expression in your body. And then, dependent on your pattern of thoughts, your external life will reflect that. So you hate yourself, if you do hate yourself, or if you have moments of hating yourself, not because there is actually somebody there to hate, but because there's been too much investment in thought, and it's got a momentum going. And then thought inherently is a problem solver. So in the investment in thought, you've thought about yourself a lot, and then you've become a problem, and your mind then wants to fix you. The other reason is because you can never actually really get what you want. So the more that you don't get what you want, the more that the thoughts turn on yourself. So it's through a habitual pattern that forms, which then becomes energetical and physiological in the body, of too much thinking, the thinking about yourself, then the natural propensity of the mind to want to problem solve, so you becoming a problem, and then not being able to actually get what you want. So the disappointment that you can't achieve your goals. You can't make life the way you want it to be. You've failed because you haven't found happiness. So I would say this is the general momentum of why a lot of Westerners suffer because of identification with thought. I am a body. And then the excessive thinking about themselves. So I would suggest that you don't suffer because you've messed your life up. You don't suffer because what your parents did. You don't suffer because of what someone else did. You don't suffer because of action, because of future things. All of these will bring pleasure and pain, but you suffer because you believe you are the doer of your actions and that it's your responsibility to get happiness. So what is the solution? What is the solution? And there is a solution. However, it's not as clear cut as a nice story in which I can give you. For most people, the solution is to investigate the nature of the one that suffers. Sometimes people are suffering so much that they have to settle that one that suffers down before they can investigate it. Because as soon as they start to investigate it, they get into spirals of self-hatred and dislike and compulsive thinking and just really negative states. So in the beginning, people might have to go through a journey of settling down the negative thoughts. And there is many things you can do to do that. You can do focusing the mind, meditation. You can do yoga, which is a very complex system, but it's releasing energies and realigning the body, and focusing the personal awareness on breath. But it's very complex. You can do diets to help improve your thinking. You can do therapy, somatic therapy, to see the relationship between your thoughts and your body and help release thoughts from the body. You can do different types of therapy to help understand your thoughts to your past. All of this will help settle the person down. There's so many more things you can do. And I have a reference on my website. You can look that up. And then when that's completed, and that might be something on and off, you do it for a period and then stop and investigate, so you oscillate, because the suffering might come and go, get stronger at certain times and then less. Once that's completed, then you can investigate who it is that's suffering. Who are you? Who are you? This is the most profound question that anyone will ever ask you. And yet so many people find it irrelevant. It's amazing. I think I was one of those people. I think when my friend first asked me this, like, who's the finger pointing to? I was like, who cares? But it's so important. Who are you? Who are you? And this becomes like the Pac-Man eating himself. He goes along eating up all those round balls, white balls. And then when he touches a ghost, he dies. And then his mouth grows and eats himself. This is what happens in non-duality. So you begin to ask who you are. So are you this body? This could be a first question. And the person is convinced, I am this body. And it's absolutely convinced, but you keep questioning that. Are you this body? Maybe that one's too much for the first go. So it could be, Are you your name? And you investigate, are you the name Lisa? Lisa, or Carl, or Muhammad, or Jessica, or Ushi? Are you the name? Mine is like, I am pretty sure I am my name. I am David. But before you knew you were your name, you existed. And don't you often forget your name? I know you think I don't, but there's many times when you're not thinking, I am David, I am David, I am David. So you're being, doing, and there's no thought of the name. So the name comes and goes. And is it this name which is speaking or listening now? Is there this like David name that exists inside the body and then is speaking? Is that the like very source of who you are? Or is that something that you're watching, that you're seeing appearing and that comes and goes? And if you change your name, are you the same person? If you decide to take a Buddhist name of Ananda, are you the same person or do you become a different person? So if you move to a different country and they can't pronounce your name, so you change it, does that make you a different person? What about your age? Do you ever internally change age? So your body changes, but your sense of being, does that age? When my friend asked my mom this when she was 70, she was like, I just don't feel 70. And my friend really beautifully guided her to her not being that age, not being 70. Like, how can her watching her sense of being be an age? Of course, she doesn't feel 70. Of course, I don't feel 44 or 21. Do you feel female or male? I mean, these are all phenomenal questions to investigate. Are you the doer of your actions? Do you do? Do you like? Do you speak? Do you walk? The first time I thought about this, I was young. I've said this many times before, and I was walking home from school, and we'd walk down this alley that echoed, and there was something about that that just gave me the giggles and like this amazement that my legs were walking, and I'd be like, "Look, Mum, the legs walk!" And I was so amazed, like they just walking. I didn't have to do anything, and they walked, and the sound was echoing. And then the parents like, don't be silly. Don't be silly. Don't be silly. Don't say silly things, Lisa. Little did they know that was incredibly profound. And I mean, just imagine, I'm sure you all do this, but just reflecting on this with your kids, just having moments of silence and you reflect on, are you breathing? Who is breathing? And this investigation can lead to what would be called an awakening, which is a profound shift in consciousness. It's not the end of pleasure and pain, but it's the end of what, not just me, but a lot of people would call the end of suffering, the end of a localized I, which feels like it's separate from everything else. So there's no longer somebody that experiences pain, it's everybody, everything experiencing pain. And this really is a profound change. And it's a connection back to the beingness, to the love and the wonder of what you are. It's what you would call unconditional love. Absolute unconditioned love. And it doesn't mean that the body doesn't still have karma and the body doesn't still have pain and pleasure and the dead body's perfect. It doesn't mean that. It's that the one that's experiencing it is no longer separate. It is consciousness experiencing, which is all things and no things. And this is going home or waking up from the dream, the hypnosis. Problem is when you hate yourself, there's often a lot of shame. So there is easily a giving up on any apparent doership activity. So on doing yoga or meditation or therapy, in order to help calm the person down, if you hate yourself, you'll easily give up on everything because you'll always interpret that you're doing something wrong, that you're not good at it, that you're the worst in the class, that it'll never work for you. And why would you be the exceptions from these thousands of years traditions? Why would you be the exception? It's a story. So you commit yourself to a few different practices. Don't jump from one to one. Just commit yourself to a few different practices that resonate for you and just keep going with those. Don't listen to the self-hatred thoughts, knowing the whole time that it's a happening, it's not a personal doership. And then when there's times when you feel more calm and more stable and less self-hatred, then you investigate into the nature of who you are. And then you can oscillate between the two. And you're suffering lots, you do the practices. When you feel more expanded, then you question, who the hell am I? Yeah, looking up in the window, there's like a dragonfly dancing in the winter garden. Big dragonfly. Sometimes birds come in and they sit up here at the top of the winter garden, and then they eat the insects from there. I don't know how they know. It's so spectacular the way this all works. But flies gather at the top of winter gardens, but they know. Yes.